Previously on Up at Noon.
Please bring out the giant check. Here, Tim, right here.
Oh my God!
Right here. You see,
it's made of real foam.
Exactly. It's a $5 check for Costume Quest 2 to get you started. Costume Quest 2 is in development.
$1 into audio, $1 into programming.
Okay, good.
Tasha,
you can get her back, no problem.
Yeah. I have some bad news about that because you did give me some funding.
Yeah, $5.
It turns out we're going to need at least twice that much.
I can do that. What's up, everybody? I'm Greg Miller, and this is Up at Noon. And no, it's far from a regular Up at Noon. No time for jokes, no time for a monologue. We have three huge guests for you. And as you probably saw in the headline, you probably saw a little previously on, Costume Quest 2 is real. Tim Schafer is here to talk about it. Then, Gone Home, a hit PC game from last year, is finally making its way to consoles, and Steve Gaynor is here to talk about it. And all of this is thanks to a new publishing label called Midnight City, and Casey Lynch, former editor-in-chief of IGN, is here to tell me about that. But first, without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about Costume Quest 2 with Double Fine's Tim Schafer. As I live and breathe, Tim Schafer.
Hello.
It's finally happening.
It's happening.
Costume
I'm so
Quest
excited.
2. Give me the hug.
Oh my gosh.
Hug everybody? No, just the guys who make sequels to my favorite games.
Oh, your favorite game of all time?
No, we don't want to go that far.
Let's just say
it's
that.
up there. Okay, favorite game of all time for this episode only.
I know.
I can't believe it.
It's already paid off. That hug made it worthwhile.
Did it? That's all it took? I would have hugged you a long time ago then.
Yeah, well, and the check, the money.
Oh, the check.
I
gave you
check?
$5.
Yeah, it's like I just happened to bring
you brought it.
Right
You brought
here.
the $5 check. This
and you can see it kind of bounced.
And this shows you. Now, if you remember, I post-dated it for April 28th.
But that wasn't the date you gave it to me?
No, because I needed to clear it after my birthday, which, by the way, is coming up again, April 27th.
Oh
but 2 years ago,
Yes.
$5, the start money, you missed your boat on that one. But I will still, and I said last time.
You will honor this check, though.
Right, we'll put it right here. Last time you were here, I believe I said I'd double it. And I also still offered to do all the VO, even though there's no VO in the original game.
Yeah,
is there
that
VO
is
in this
kinda
game?
Is that a condom?
No, these are receipts.
All right, everybody, we're off to the races.
So it's happening. Costume Quest 2 is real. It's finally it's really happening.
We're in production. We're making it. I've seen the screen with the characters, Ren and Reynolds running around.
They're back.
The Ren and Reynolds are back. They're working on the combat system. It's going to be deeper and juicier.
Everything I loved about it, same thing though.
All the things you loved.
Cute.
Trick-or-treating. It's going to be
Candy.
adorable. And that feeling of like Halloween, like you get when you watch the Charlie Brown Halloween special. Great Pumpkin. You know, like it's the kind of game that like every year we think about it again. Like a lot of other games like Psychonauts and Brutal Legend, people will say you should do a sequel to that.
Yeah.
But this year it's just been building. Like every year, every time Halloween comes around, people think about it again and tell us about it again. And we couldn't say no. And I was hoping to get you to double it every year, so we'd be up.
Well, there you go.
20.
You're getting there. I'll give you all the money in my wallet if you want.
Wow.
If that's what it takes to make sure this game happens. When's it coming out? What are we doing? How soon?
It's this year.
Now? This year? Oh my goodness! What can I play now?
By Halloween.
Oh my gosh!
Obviously.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to screw
It's
that.
the toughest deadline. It's the game that can't be late.
Yeah. You can't delay this one at all.
Unless we can get everyone to agree to slip Halloween itself.
No, that's not going to happen.
It'd be easier just to make it.
Why did it take 4 years to get here? The first time I ever interviewed you on Up at Noon, we started talking about Costume Quest, but you actually led in with a joke about how it's hard to do seasonal content.
Well, it is that game you can't slip the schedule, and there was a feeling at the time of like, well, this is limiting the game. It's only going to be played at Halloween.
Yeah.
But it's also going to be played that next Halloween and next Halloween. Some people play it every year on Halloween. I do.
Yeah.
I'm sure you do.
I watch the video review on IGN. Every year.
Yeah.
That's usually how I do it.
So there's something good about seasonal content.
Right. So when you said that though, I tried to read between the lines on you, and I was like, oh, this is a sore spot for him. Like, was it a sore spot for you with Costume Quest, or did you get it at that time, 2 years ago? We were younger men.
It's the kind of game you always want to revisit because there's such a great core to it, and getting it out there and having people play it, you start to see things you want to do maybe differently or enhance about it, and now we finally get the chance to do that.
Now, of course, Costume Quest, story of these siblings, one of them kidnapped. How are you handling the fact that there's two timelines for Costume Quest, pretty much? I could have played as Ren, I could have played as Reynolds. Of course, Ren was the right choice. But if one of these people who played as Reynolds,
You will still get to choose, and I think we will deal with that. Wait, I never really thought about that.
You're gonna you're gonna have references. You're gonna double back.
Yeah, we got some clever
parts?
schemes.
Okay.
And it's all gonna fit back in together.
Okay.
We have a crack team on it right now.
More costumes.
There's gonna be more costumes.
Lots of costumes.
Yeah.
How long is the game gonna be?
Wait, we
what
just
platforms are
started.
gonna be
Look,
on?
we just all of them, a bunch of them,
Okay.
most of them, all the ones you want.
Pretty much the ones that are mattering at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So
Exactly.
now you and I have talked about this before. I've only made 12 games in my life. For you, really, right now at Double Fine, what does it look like right now for Costume Quest? We're still months out, but it's a different kind of game. Like, are you already running around playing it, or is it that you're still very much assembling things?
Yeah, well, we have the first game to start with is like with the engine, and we have a lot of the models, and so it got up and running really fast, and kids are trick-or-treating, and combat is going on.
Okay.
So, yeah, it has to be done by Halloween. Did I mention that?
You mentioned that.
Yeah,
You seem like
something
you're worried
Halloween.
about it.
No, why would I ever be worried about a schedule? Schedules are no big deal.
You're a big game developer, publisher. You're fine. You're all right. You'll be
exactly,
okay.
Exactly.
So then, walk me through how it came to be this time around, how it actually happened, and how you got involved with Midnight City. Did they come to you and say, we want you to make this game, and cracked a whip, and Casey stroked his beard, and that was the end of it?
the magic beard. That's the last thing I remember was him touching the beard, and then I woke up and we were making the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. No, we know Casey from hanging around the offices.
From IGN.com.
Yeah. And we wanted to do something together, and they're doing this new thing with the Midnight City.
Yeah.
And we talked about different projects that we could do together, and both shared an interest in Costume Quest 2.
How many times in that conversation did my name come up?
It started with, how can we make Greg happy?
Yeah.
That was the main thing.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm so
That's
glad.
how all conversations started. What have I done for Greg today?
Yeah, not enough. That's for sure. Stacking. What are you thinking?
Yeah, wait,
Get in Costume Quest
that's
2.
awesome. Yeah.
Stacking was good.
So, so that's how that came to be.
Okay.
What they're doing is kind of interesting. It's different because, there's, in the old days, the way you would work with a publisher was somewhat onerous, might say. And then I think what they're doing over there is like a kind of a different generation of publisher.
Is
a
it
little more
exciting?
developer friendly.
Yeah,
in the old days.
what about it is different for you as a developer? What enticed you to work with them? Because original Costume Quest done through THQ, one of that and Stacking were kind of like not your final like big publisher games or whatever, but it was like you guys were always trying to get more and more independent, more and more digital distribution, get out on your own, right?
Yeah, and Double Fine is now, we're self-publishing a lot of things, so we still work with publishers when it makes sense or when, it used to be we were dying for a publishing contract or we'd go out of business. Please sign this game and we'll go out of business.
Yeah.
And now we have a business up and running and we can choose partners that are going to be good to work with and who have like the same interests we have, like making a really great game, like Costume Quest 2.
Costume Quest 2.
Yeah.
$10.
They said we'll publish this game, but we're not going to pay for the first $10.
Yeah, I'm glad.
They go, if you
want
can
that.
get the first $10, we will carry the rest of it.
Okay. And so what makes Midnight City a different label or publisher, I guess, then?
They have skulls.
Yeah.
Really cool skulls. Have you noticed that?
Games with balls. That was their big thing on their debut.
Yep, that's true. That's true. Oh, I don't know if did you have to put it that way?
That's what they put in their trailer. This is what you signed up for. Don't come talking to me like I'm the one doing it.
This is not the last time we're going to talk about balls.
No,
what
of
you're
course
saying.
not.
Okay.
You and I have been around the block together. We have a lot more years and adventures together.
We're not going to talk about our... No, okay.
No, okay. We're not going to do that. Okay. Well, Tim,
Yeah.
I'm super stoked, as you know.
I'm excited
I still
too.
can't believe this is happening.
You think it's some elaborate prank?
No? Maybe. Is it?
No.
Okay.
No, it's really happening.
The only way it gets better is if you put a Superboy pre-New 52, post-Crisis costume in there. It'd
Okay.
need to be the little black T-shirt.
There's no legal
jeans.
problem with that?
DC Comics seems like they'd give that up pretty
They're
easy.
pretty chill.
Look at you. You're just making things happen. I mean, you're getting games back. You're doing all this stuff. You're
This will
fine.
pay for our legal fees.
Exactly. I'll put in some calls. Or you could just do a knockoff Superboy costume. It's just a little. We'll explain afterwards.
Okay.
But so to recap, coming out for Halloween
Costume Quest 2.
on platforms that matter.
Costumes.
Okay. And it has costumes.
Mm-hmm.
And
Reynolds.
Ren's back. Ren's the way to play, though, because she's the real story.
Yeah, they're both, we put a lot into both of them.
No, play as Ren, everybody.
Have you ever played it as Reynolds?
No, of course not. Come on.
Would that totally... It's like
Well,
a whole
it's like I
different
have the
game.
narrative in my head of what this story is, and
Yeah.
it's the sister saving her brother. I don't want to go back and mess that up.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
That's good to know.
It is. I'm so excited. I love you very much.
Oh,
Thank you for doing
so
this.
much. Is another hug gonna happen?
Sure, but first I want to intro to the next guest. Ladies and gentlemen, as if this show couldn't get any crazier with announcements, we're now going to go talk to another Up at Noon friend, Steve Gaynor, about what's happening with Gone Home on consoles. Now you get a big hug.
Are you gonna hug him too?
Oh my god! Oh my god! This is my back!
As I live and breathe, Steve Gaynor.
Good to see you, Greg.
It's good to see you. You're back?
Yes.
What does it feel like to be a sellout? You're like, oh, we're indie games, no consoles for us, and look who comes crawling back, the master race, huh? Here we are.
Feels good, Greg.
Good, I'm glad. No, this is awesome. You know what a big fan, big proponent of Gone Home I am.
And I
brought it
appreciate
to
it.
the world after Marty reviewed it and said it was really good.
Well, we give all the credit to you.
Thank you. That's all that I want. It's just the public, just the public to think that I had something to do with your game. I'm glad this is happening, but how did it happen? You were PC, you were here, we did some Let's Plays and stuff, and I was poking you, I was saying, bring it to the PlayStation. You're like, oh.
Yeah, you're like, what is this? I don't play games on whatever
What's
this
a
thing
WASD?
is. Yeah. No, I mean, we built Gone Home as a PC game originally, right? And it's because we're a very small studio. We could get our game onto a PC, like very easily, like relatively speaking. And there's just so many fewer things to consider compared to consoles, just like technically, And we knew that we were going to be appealing to kind of the Steam audience, the very plugged-in kind of core gamer audience.
The hardcore gamer, yeah.
Who pays attention to, this crazy indie game just came out on Steam. I should check it out.
This guy worked on Minerva's Den. Come on, guys.
What, you've heard of that? And so, we started there, and we've been very grateful to see that people have really connected with it on PC, but we've had so many people also say, like, I hear your game is really great, I want to play it, but I'm not a PC gamer. Are you going to bring it to Xbox, PlayStation, etc.? And we wanted to.
Yeah.
It was really just a question of, how do we do that as such a small studio? And so then, we started talking to the guys at Midnight City.
Right.
And they are just the kind of group that we want to work with. Like, they
Why
care.
is that? Yeah, what makes them stand out?
I mean, they clearly care so deeply about the kinds of games that, that we care about.
Yeah.
That, like Gone Home, and I know that you were talking to Tim. And,
Yeah, he was on right before you.
Yeah.
You were in the room when that happened. Wink. Got the perfect crime.
And we always wanted to partner with somebody who was just going to really care, and for a game like Gone Home to be one of their biggest focuses with what they're bringing out. Because I mean, we are small enough that we made the decision that we were going to find somebody to work with who would like port the game to the consoles for us and like publish it for us on those consoles. But there's so many options for that. You know, you could go with a much bigger group that you're just going to be kind of a very small drop in their portfolio.
Sure.
But for us, we felt like kind of the
be a
identity.
big drop.
Yeah, we want to be a big drop. Let's say. But like with Midnight City, they just had the outlook. It's like these guys get it, and we want to be a part of that.
Is that something you think a lot of video game fans maybe don't get, right? Oh, they made the game on PC. How hard could it be to port it over to a whatever kind of console? And then you're like, well, there's 4 of us, and we have to promote this game.
Yeah, I mean, it's when there's 4 people on the team, you really have to kind of pick your battles, right?
Yeah.
And so some teams do all of the work themselves, and they throw themselves into it, and they make it their job for like a long time.
Right.
And self-publish on console, like you can do that nowadays. For us, it was a lot more interesting to say, who's a group that we can find that they'll invest themselves totally in getting the best version of Gone Home possible onto consoles, so that we can concentrate on, like participating in that, overseeing it, giving our input all through the process, but be able to make our day-to-day figuring out what our next thing is, you know, and really focus ourselves on that.
So now, other than trophies, achievements, what's Gone Home about? What's drawing me back in, other than the fact that it was one of the best games of last year?
I mean, the thing that I think is really important about what we're doing with bringing Gone Home to consoles is that we designed Gone Home from the beginning to be a couch experience, right? Like, in the PC version, it's controller compatible all the way through. Like we designed it so you can read everything from the couch. Like a lot of people did with their, if they had a gaming PC in their living room, played it that way. And so for us, what we want to do is just make sure that we take that core experience, of being able to play the game in the comfort of your kind of gaming space instead of at your desk or whatever, and make it the very best version of that experience for each platform. Because there are trophies and there is achievements, but there's also new features with the new consoles. I know that the PS4 is like all about sharing, for instance, and we're still even looking into exactly which consoles we're gonna
Yeah, that's
come out
the thing.
on.
Obviously, you're at home, you're freaking out, just pounding on your screen. When it's consoles 2014. That's all you're prepared to say yet.
Right, because
until the next check cashes from these Midnight City suits. I don't know.
We got to see whether these guys got it.
Actually pony up the dough here.
But for us, it's less about like, okay, what are we going to add? How are we going to change it? Like how can we add an extra room to the house or something? Like we feel like Gone Home.
Get into the other garage.
Yeah, make it a 3-car garage.
Yeah, exactly.
See the Toyota that's in there.
Yeah.
Be able to turn the blinkers off and on.
I bet she has a forestry keychain.
You would be correct.
That's a free piece of swag right there. You can just sell that right too.
But for us, it's less about saying how can we like throw extra stuff into the game, because we feel like Gone Home is complete as it is, and it's much more about saying how can we not just kind of toss this onto a console and say, call it a day, but say how can we make it really the very best version of that you could possibly play on the hardware that you've got in your living room.
Okay, I like that. The best version. That's good. Coming to consoles. The best version.
Right, because you're a console guy.
I'm
You're
the
just
console
looking
guy.
for a hook to say like,
Exactly.
see, this is better than PC.
No,
game.
I'm not that guy. I don't want to be a fanboy war guy. I just like to give them the jabs on the show, and then they shout at me, but I can't hear them. So that's great. When you were here last time, it was kind of not the start of everything, but you were definitely on the upswing of how crazy things were going to get for you.
It was like a week or two after launch.
Yeah. And then from there, lots of Game of the Year nods, tons of love, beautiful editorials from hundreds of sites written about it, blog posts.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel?
It has been a really overwhelming, like it's been about 6 months now.
Yeah.
It's like, we didn't know what to expect when the game came out, and seeing reactions like, you guys bringing me down here for Up at Noon after launch. But seeing the really personal responses that people have had online, and then, crazy just end of the year award kind of stuff. It's like when you decide to make a video game in your basement, you really can't ask for much more than to have people kind of show this kind of, appreciation for the work that you did.
So when you're working on it and you're making the game, obviously, this isn't the end goal isn't to be like, man, we got a Game of the Year award or whatever. But I mean,
doesn't hurt.
Do you leave yourself open to that thought? Like when you're doing stuff like, this is something special, we're doing something cool, or is it you try to pare that down?
I think that it's really hard to look that far ahead, because like for us, we knew that with the kind of game we were making, the only way that it was really going to be a success for us was going to be if it kind of touched a nerve with like the critics and the audience that is clued in and writes blogs about their experience and kind of gets the word out and shares those kinds of experiences with players. But beyond hoping that we had made something that people were really going to connect with, and spread the word about, I don't think that you can be like, all right, and then there's going to be awards and we got to win, X number of them. Like, I think that our greatest hope was just that people would like it, And so when you go forward and you get the kind of expression of that is like, here's the best X of the year award, like that's incredible for us, for sure.
How far along are you right now in the sequel?
On Gone Home 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah. It's Sam and Lonnie's kid. She comes home, they're gone. She's got to figure it out.
This is a rabbit hole that could just keep going.
Yeah.
You're like 8 sequels in. Great.
Yeah, there's like
children.
flying space cars and stuff. All right. So you're not working on a sequel.
We're not working on a sequel. We're currently doing very early days stuff on figuring out what our next game is. I can say it won't be Gone Home 2.
Okay.
But I can also say that it'll be us continuing to explore the kind of interactive experience that we started with Gone Home, and just seeing what our next step is with it, so we don't repeat ourselves.
Okay.
But we can do something that we're excited about, and that I hope that players will be excited about too.
I have 2 left field questions for you. All right. Number 1, you used to work over at Irrational. You used to be a part. You work on these BioShock stuff.
The BioShocks.
The BioShocks, as they are known, with a Z. Did it catch you? I mean, were you as off guard as everybody else that they let so many people go? Decided that Ken's like, we're going to focus on more story driven stuff. Similar to when he describes it, it sounds like what you guys do.
I will say I was surprised.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard about it beforehand. I actually woke up that morning to a text from somebody else in the industry.
Yeah.
That was just Irrational shutting down ? And I was like, what? And no, I mean it's one of those things where I'm really interested to see what happens next there. I'm not too worried about folks that had to be let go because you've played BioShock Infinite.
Right.
Like, they're the best in the business.
Right.
Those people are going to go on to do great. Like, it always really sucks when there's layoffs and people have to figure out what they're doing next. But I think the team that the people I worked with at
Sure.
Irrational are so talented that they're going to go on to do great things. And, of course, I'm interested to see what Ken's going to do next as well.
Right. Do you think you inspired him? Do you think your success with Gone Home is what he was like, damn, I need to do that?
Yeah, he before I left,
It's like, if your game's a hit, I'm going to do the exact same thing.
Yeah, he gave me the wink and nod. He was like, no, I don't know. I think that something that's interesting is, Infinite was a gigantic project,
Yeah.
and I think that it is kind of a fascinating reflection of where the industry is right now, that someone who's done such enormous productions is saying, you know what, I think that my next step is to do something that's smaller,
Yeah.
and to do something that is kind of like more pared down and focused on a smaller audience. I don't know what that thing looks like. That's what
Right.
makes it exciting to me. Is like when someone takes work, goes from here to here. I'm fascinated to see what that's going to turn out to be like.
Here's a question I have for you. As a video game developer, and now an official big-time video game developer. You're a big-time developer.
Well, I am sitting here talking to Greg Miller. Doesn't get much bigger than that.
Oh, well, is that a fat joke? No. No, that's one of my things, right, that I only know the industry from the press side. And
Sure.
whenever these layoffs come around, they just happen with Sony Santa Monica as well, I talk to our fans through podcasts or whatever, and I talk about the fact that, to me, that's the nature, it seems, of big video game development right now. That the teams ramp up in size, then the game comes out, or the DLC ships, and we have to cut off a whole bunch of people because pre-production doesn't take that many people. Is that a valid perspective for me as an outsider, and do you think do other developers get that?
I think it depends. I mean, you don't really, unless I'm just not paying attention, you don't really see a lot of stories about big layoffs at like Ubisoft Montreal, for
Sure.
instance. I don't think there's ever really been like a huge round of layoffs at like Naughty Dog or something, right? Like, I think that it all depends whether the organization can have enough titles in different stages of development simultaneously that they can say, okay, instead of we finished our huge game and now 100 of you or 300 or however, have to go find other jobs, we'll shift you over onto this other project that's coming out of pre-production, like kind of the staggered development thing. And when you're looking at something like Ubisoft Montreal, they have so many projects and so
Right.
many people that it's like, yeah, they can shift people around and kind of keep everybody inside the organization. But, when it's something like, Irrational was essentially a one project studio, it's like, okay, we made BioShock Infinite, we finished the DLC. It's just like you said, like what are
what do you
150
do now?
people going to be doing?
Yeah.
It's a really tough situation, and it happens all over the industry. And the upside, I guess, if there is one, is that at least you've just shipped something that hopefully is representative of the work you can do, and you can find people always need it's actually really hard to find a really talented game developer. Bringing hundreds of people together that can do this stuff into one place to make these games is an incredible undertaking.
Right. Well, I was thinking about it, in the case of Irrational, right? Like, it happened, and then there was this immediate, first off, groundswell on the internet, right? Of like, here's this Google Doc, people to contact for jobs,
Yeah.
but then they did the job fair, and it's almost like one of those things. I feel, again, sitting in my throne, never getting laid off from making video games because I have no talent, that they get that, right? That, there's layoffs here, so we'll go staff our next team. But knowing full well that in 18 months, maybe they're laying off those same people, that then another job fair comes gets.
Yeah, and I think it's part of, honestly, why we're seeing more people go from AAA to indie, right? Because like when you've been through that loop a few times, and you're like, okay, I worked hard on something, I shipped it, I had to find a job again. Yeah. Okay, I shipped that, now I have to move to find another job. I think we're really lucky to be at a point in the industry where you can say, okay, I've shipped stuff, I know people in the industry, I can get a programmer and an artist and a designer together, and we can make something, and we can make it small, and we can get it to an audience that's going to be paying attention, and we can make that our livelihood.
I mean, is this what happened to you?
I mean, it for me, it wasn't like layoff related, but
who let you off?
Better people have been laid off than me, believe it. But it was more the sense of like, after a while, it's like, okay, you're going to ship a big title, then you're going to, find another one to work on, and it's like at some point, I think when you see the opportunity that you could say, I could get out of that treadmill and make something that is driven by myself and a small team, that can all sit in a room together and just make this thing and really own it and get it out to an audience. That is, I think, really exciting, depending on what point you're at in your career.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good. I like you. I'm glad you got out and you went and did your thing, gone home, now coming to consoles in 2014, then whatever the next space project of exploring narratives is. Steve, you're a good man.
Well, thank you,
Thank you
Greg.
for coming by. Now,
Always good talking
Here's
to
a
you.
hug, because you're putting trophies in games now. I like that a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, like we said, 2 huge announcements. Costume Quest 2, now gone home, not to consoles, we'll call it. GHC, that's your new one.
GHC.
You start that. We'll get that one to take on the streets, but it's all because of the independent publishing label known as Midnight City. Here to tell me all about it is Casey Lynch. As I live and breathe, Casey Lynch. How are you, sir?
I'm really good. How are you?
You're back. You used to run IGN.
I did, didn't I?
When you left IGN, I remember being upset. I don't like to see people leave IGN, let alone people I like. Now that you've done all this, though, I'm really glad you left.
Okay. Well.
You did a really good job. What is Midnight City? We've talked a little bit about it. It's the independent, blah, blah, blah. What is it to you?
It's the independent blah, 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 blah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's it.
You nailed it.
Thanks, everybody, for watching up.
No. Midnight City's a independent publishing label that... we work with independent developers to help bring their games to the biggest audience possible and help take a lot of the business stuff off their plate so they can focus on making really great games. So whether it's a team that's never shipped a game on console and we help them with like first-party submission and becoming an approved developer and getting test kits and help with license or Q&A and test resources and that sort of stuff, or like just like PR, marketing, promotion, that kind of stuff. We sort of help them and support them in that so they can, like I said, just really focus on making the games great.
Okay, so this is what stole you away from IGN, stole your heart, took you away. But you did this. This was your idea, right? As far as don't get me wrong, other people worked with you. It's not like you just hatched it by yourself.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So we're a division within Majesco. So think of us like a Miramax to their Disney, if you will.
Okay.
So although that's probably not the best analogy anymore these days.
Doesn't pan out well.
Whoa! But that's the idea, right? To have sort of like a small division that works on independent projects. We greenlight our own games and so forth. So Majesco, they have a long history of working with independent developers. They did Psychonauts with Double Fine back in the day, and all the way up to more recently, they worked with Andy on Monaco. They did Double Dragon Neon with Way Forward and Blood Rain Betrayal with Way Forward as well. And so Majesco, a couple years ago, they'd had this idea of putting together a pub fund where they would set money aside and be able to provide funding to developers. But it really wasn't more than that. So when that idea sort of came across my desk, we all sort of talked and we said, well, what if we did something that was different? And instead of just having like a pub fund, we actually built something with some personality and with the brand, and really went after like specific projects and really tried to build this independent slice within Majesco that focused on all indies and all digital publishing.
So why Costume Quest 2?
Well, other than that, it's awesome.
Well, you and I know that.
Right.
I know it. I preach from my mountaintop of Up at Noon all the time. But it's one of those games that, I think are people, was THQ ever asking for a sequel? Now they had their own problems.
Yeah.
There are some other holes to fill in the ship.
They were busy working on UDraw.
Yeah.
So we announced the company last year at PAX.
Yeah.
And we've been friends with the guys at Double Fine for a long time, and they got in touch with us, and they wanted to talk about, hey, well, we've got a bunch of different projects. We see that you're doing this new thing. It looks interesting, so let's just talk. And originally, they had pitched some projects that had come out of Amnesia Fortnite that were new projects, like Black Lake was something that we talked about. But as we were talking about all those, every time we kept coming back to, well, yeah, but we could do Costume Quest 2, and that would be great. And so we finally sort of settled on that and worked together real hard to kind of put something together. And we all said yes, and here we are.
So similar story for Gone Home then, as far as did you know Steve beforehand or Fullbright and reach out that way, or how did that go?
No, so that project was brought to us through some mutual friends, and I love Gone Home. I mean, as far as games that I played last year, that was one that stood out for lots of different reasons. And that's a really good example of a game that it's received critical acclaim, and people loved it, and it's been more than just a game. It's been meaningful to so many people's lives. But when it came out, it was only on Steam, and so that's a very specific type of audience. And so in talking about this project, we thought, goodness, this is a game that needs to be on more platforms, and more people need to play it because it's that kind of game.
So was I guess not selling Steve or Fullbright on it, was that hard, or do they get that? I mean, I guess the whole way to look at this, right, is it's so hard to make games, and so these people make Gone Home, it's on Steam, they move on to their next project or worry about something. They don't have time to worry about consoles, I guess. Is that the idea? And then you guys come in, you're like, we can take care of that grunt work? Absolutely,
and every project's a little bit different. With them, we are able to oversee the port process. We're also able to pitch in on promotion and marketing. I mean, they've been so busy. They are a team of 4 people.
Yeah.
And they've had, they have other people that have, contributed, like Chris doing the music and what. But Chris Remo from previously in Double Fine, now at Campo Santos.
He just gets around.
So he does, man.
You can go get the soundtrack off Bandcamp.
Chris, Sean, please call me. I love you guys. But so with them, I mean, they've been just traveling around the world, basically selling the game.
Right.
So it was really important to them not just to find a partner that could help, whether it be from a resource or finance or whatever it was perspective, but to find somebody that understands the game and wants to sort of share in telling that story. And that's absolutely us. Like the minute that I heard that we might have an opportunity to work on that project, we were immediately like, hey, what can we do? In fact, I flew out to Las Vegas and met with the team at DICE, and it wasn't so much selling them on it as much as helping them understand who we are. Because again, the company was just announced last year, and we really pride ourselves on having a bunch of games that have a certain sort of discoverability factor to them. They're not games that are from a lot of developers that you may or may not have heard of. Some of them are, we did Slender, which is a super popular game, and we're working with Action Button with Tim Rogers on Video Ball, and people love him. But a lot of our developers, some of them are college students, and they've never toured a game, they've never released games on consoles. So that's important to us to have that. But then on the flip side, it's important for us to work on these bigger projects as well to help sort of validate those smaller ones. So working with Fullbright, I just sat down with them and said, this is the way that I would approach it, and this is why this would be an important project for me, and this is who we are. We're a small team. We have 5 people, and so in a lot of ways, our sensibilities and our priorities and the spirit of what we do is very similar to a team like Fullbright, and Double Fine's much bigger than we are. So as far as just their staff.
Yeah.
But in that sense, I think that's sort of really what it comes down to. And it's the same thing like Tim was talking about. Those guys, they don't have to work with a publisher, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's important for them to have not just support, but an understanding that the people that they're working together with really understand games, and they love games, and they want to be a part of sort of telling that story about games.
Do you think that, are you guys tip of the sword kind of thing on the way publishing is going to have to work in the future? I mean, we talk all the time about the mid-tier publisher falling away, THQ falling away, and then there's these indies, and then there's these huge AAA experiences, and how does that all work together?
Yeah, I mean, I think things have sort of shaken out, and we're going to see more and more people experimenting with smaller titles. I mean, they cost less to make, they cost less for a consumer to buy, they take less time to play, so it's just less risk all around the board. So yeah, I think that we're probably going to see more people experimenting with this type of stuff, whether it's, maybe we'll see another collective of independent developers come together and form their own publisher, like, God back in the day, gathering of developers. Right. Or, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw more established publishers sort of breaking off a division within their company to say, like, hey, just focus on independent titles. And Ubisoft does that, like Child of Light that's coming out. They sort of have their own division of people focusing on that. So I think that we're going to see people focusing on like really trying to meet the needs of these developers so that these games can be more successful. Outside
of the fact you're working on two of my favorite games now and bringing them to consoles and letting me get trophies for them, which is, of course, a big deal for me.
For sure.
I want to tell you how proud I am of you. This is such an awesome thing you've gone and done. You know what I mean? And I don't know, we sit here and we go to GDCs and PAXs and all these things, and we get to be on a different side of the industry, a different side of the screen than everybody out there. But, what you're doing and the way you're trying to help independent developers, and that's really, really cool. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of people are struggling with that, and some are succeeding, but to see you find, like, what are some of the other games you've been doing? At PAX last year, right? You did the announcement event, and there was all these people there that were just like kids trying to make their games, and you were trying to get them out to people.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for that.
No problem.
I appreciate it. I mean, like I said, our teams are very different one from the other. Like, so far we've released 4 games: Slender the Arrival on Steam, Blood of the Werewolf on Steam, The Bridge on XBLA, and Double Dragon Neon. We added online co-op and put that on the Steam. And the next sort of round of games, we're bringing Slender the Arrival to Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. And we're bringing Blood of the Werewolf to the same as well, and even more platforms. And we were just here showing you guys Avalanche 2, Super Avalanche, which is like this sort of like endless climber meets RPGs. Yeah. Where you like play as this marshmallow and you just keep climbing. But instead of like your sort of typical endless climber, there's actually like currencies, and there's stores, and there's a bank, and there's upgrades, and there's boss fights. And so it sort of takes the idea of an endless runner and turns it on its head. But and then there's a game like Grapple, for instance, which is a game that Destin Legary
I know him.
Found. Yeah, that guy, right? I love you, Destin. This was, back when we were at IGN, or I was, and Destin went to the Screw Attack convention in Texas, and when he came back, he was talking all about this game, and so we reached out to the guys after I had left, because I just had remembered it, and there were 2 grad students living in Dallas or nearby there, and they've never shipped a game on consoles, and,
right.
So it's just a brand new world for them. So yeah, being able to work with them, like almost on a level of like a record label. I mean, that's kind of like the way that I've tried to build this business, to say like, we want to discover talent, we want to work with them to, like if they were a band, to connect the dots and say like, oh, you need to work with this producer and be in this studio and support this band and be on tour like this. And then 2 or 3 records in, like you're going to Europe, you're going to Japan, doing all that. And so on the flip side, that metaphor extended into games is, we want their games to be successful. We want them as a development team to make a name for themselves. We want them to, learn how to, talk to the press, feel great about going to events and showing games. Right. All those different things. And, the truth is like every independent developer doesn't need to work with a publishing partner. Like there's so many out there that are super successful on their own, and they're great at going to all the events, showing their games, being on Twitter, talking to you guys, and all the press. But for every like dozen, there's hundreds that don't know how to do that, or don't want to, or they don't have the bandwidth. Like for them, they're trying to finish a game.
Sure. They're putting all of their effort and resources into getting this game out the door.
Off hours while they're working another full-time job in many respects. So.
Well, Casey, you're on your way. Thank you so much for coming by. Thank you so much for making my games awesome. Come here. You get a hug too. That's our show. A huge thank you to Tim Schafer, Steve Gaynor, and Casey Lynch. Remember, I usually have an audience here for Up at Noon, so if you're ever in San Francisco, go.ign.com/Up at Noon for details. As always, Brian and I will be responding to comments. The first hour of this video is live on IGN, so come tell us your favorite moment from the original Costume Quest. Mine, when Ren was all frightened that cat was going to barf on her. Costume Quest is a great game. You should go pre-order it and play it right now. Just do it, all right? It's been an uphill struggle 4 years. Anyways, I'm sorry. We'll be back next week with more jokes and interviews and news you care about. But until then, I'm going back to bed. Ashley Johnson.